Hello, everybody. Official introduction. My name is Kyle Weishart. I'm a senior digital marketing specialist at Nex-Tech. You might remember me from a past presentation talking about Google Analytics, but if you don't, here's a very brief background on me. I've been with Nex-Tech for roughly 4 years now, but in addition to that, I have over 10 years of agency level experience working in both digital marketing and web development. So that's just a little bit about me. So let's get into the presentation. As Jody said, today's presentation is Track It to Market It, Unlock the Power of Order Tracking for Smarter Marketing Strategies. Or a simpler way to think about it is using order tracking data for smarter marketing strategies. So why should you continue to listen to this presentation? Well, what we're going to talk about today is data, what to collect and how to use it. And then we're going to combine that in order to build a marketing strategy, which ultimately will lead to gaining more orders at a lower cost per acquisition. So before we do that, I'd like to take a quick poll of the entire audience. So I'm going to launch that now. And I just want you guys to answer this question of what type of order tracking systems do you use? So do you use an in-store or on the phone? So are your CSRs and CSAs constantly taking walk-ins and over the phone orders? Or do you have like an online form where someone would select a city? Do you go all the way to address validation in an online form where a user must select their address or type in their address, and then they get to see the different types of service offerings that are basically just for them in that specific area? That's definitely the best of the best, simply for the fact that when you do address validation, the users only get to see the products and services that you offer to their address. And then secondly, because it collects the data automatically. That address data that you're going to be getting is incredibly useful later on that you might miss out on like an online form. So if you're only doing a city selection version of that, you're only getting city level data right away. And if they abandon in the process earlier, that's all you can collect. However, if you're doing an in-store or phone method, perhaps if someone comes into your office and says, hey, I need internet service in Kansas City, your CSRs and CSAs say, hey, we don't service that area. Maybe Comcast or AT&T does. And out the door you go. That could be a missed data collection point, and data is very important to collect. So, make sure that you have a spreadsheet available for them to fill out or some way for them to log that interaction with that customer. So let's view the results of this poll. Looks like most of you guys are actually using it online with city selection, which is really good. But once again, having that collection happen at an address level is going to be a little bit better, and we'll talk about that very soon. This is our data that we've collected in the last year. So we can see multiple areas across the United States. Most of this isn't very useful for us. We're not going to go up to that person in Vermont that was interested, and we're probably not going to build down to Texas. But we can see we are a North Central Kansas internet service company, and we can see that Kansas, it's expanding further and further to the east. So overall, we could get an idea that we need to start building to the east because that's where the interest is happening. If we zoom in just a little bit to Kansas, we can get an even better picture. So this is the areas that we actually target and market to. If we focus on the right-hand side, do you guys see the black area at the top right? So that's an area that we can target, and you can see there's quite a few clusters directly outside that area that we could potentially build to. And if there's enough signups or address searches in there, that definitely influences our decision making. Or perhaps maybe you guys see the bottom blue cluster at the bottom right-hand side. So do you see those two towns between the black clusters and the blue clusters on the right-hand side? Looks like Lynnsburg and McPherson. So those are considered very high quality areas for us to focus on because they're towns with starting interest for us. And we can see that because there's quite a few little orange dots there. Somehow they're probably predisposed to some Nex-Tech ads in the area. Maybe they've heard us on the radio, and that's why there's some interest there because we're not currently marketing to those areas. If we take a deeper dive and get more granular, here's another area that we can look at. This is Great Bend. We've been currently building here for several years. What you might notice is Our original plans only started with building in Great Bend, which is that giant green area at the bottom. However, because we've had clusters and more address entries to the top right, we've added that zone after the fact. So we've gotten a lot of orders in that northeast area. So we've actually went along, we've built mainline fiber up along the highway, then went east to get those people over there. And if we were looking at this data now, it might be important for us to look at another cluster and adding another zone directly 1 square north of our green area too. Let's talk about data collection and analysis. So every unique address that's ever been searched should be stored in a database because it can be used for any number of things. It can be used for grant opportunities, future build considerations, and where to have marketing events because you can focus on the lower penetration rates of the towns that you're servicing. Something like a grant opportunity, I know I mentioned it, but like if you could say, hey, in Lindsberg, we had 22 people interested in our services while we're applying for a grant, in order to get a grant, you have to have some data. And by having that data already collected, you're more likely to receive that grant if you can already give them that information. Another piece of information that you should be collecting is what's called lead to order rates. So our lead to order rate is currently 63%. And then another one is address search to order rate. So address search to order rate is how many total addresses were ever searched. And in our case, it's 9,161. And how many orders did we get out of that, which is 4,102. So we take the total number of orders divided by the addresses to get our address order rate. So you might be wondering, how do you get higher order rates? So first, competitive service pricing, right? You can't have $200 gig internet in a town where your competitor has $100 gig internet in that same town. You got to be pretty competitive in your pricing. Speed's the same thing. But more importantly, let's talk about the value of your service. So at Nex-Tech, our value that we give is excellent customer service. So some of that excellent customer service that we can provide is if somebody calls in, they go directly to our help desk, and those help desk people can instantly help them out. If they can't help them out during normal business hours, our truck rolls are free for our customers. Another thing you can do to get higher order rates is focus on having a service or product offering that your customers can sign up for called fiber only drops, and allow them to do that without any financial commitment. So when you're overbuilding to a new area, it's cheaper and you don't have any, or you have less go backs if a user can just sign up without having any financial commitment. So you're building the drop before they sign up for service. Now let's dig into marketing strategy. So marketing strategies that we use a multi-medium approach, meaning radio, TV, digital ads, and print. And all of that's really great for building awareness, that highest level of the marketing funnel. Yard signs is also another very important piece. So I'm a digital guy, and I actually didn't think yard signs were going to be very important to our success, but I was proven wrong. So we incentivize our yard signs, giving a $50 bill credit to anyone who signs up for them. And because of that, we were able to see large number of customers sign up for yard signs, which influence their neighbors. We've all heard the saying, keeping up with the Joneses, which is true. And when people see your yard signs in their neighbors, maybe your wife starts asking questions like, why is the Joneses across the street, signing up for that service? What's that all about? And if you can have your yard signs out there, it's going to be great customer or great brand awareness and product awareness for you. Next, community events. We like to hire in the towns that we're building to. And what that does is we specifically try to find someone who's very engaged in their community. Maybe they're attending multiple organizations, or they're a chamber member or something along those lines. If you can get someone on your team like that, that makes building into those communities easier because you already have an inside expert that knows the events, knows what you should be spending your advertising dollars on, and going after that. Some of the events that we've held, we've sponsored zoos. Simply handing out bottled water with our label on it has gone really well. And then also golf courses. We've sponsored men and women's nights at these local golf courses where we would, at the end of that, they would come into the clubhouse, we would give them free drinks and appetizers and just talk to them about the benefits of fiber in their communities. Next, unique landing pages. These landing pages should be unique to each town that you're offering. It drives a higher engagement rate for those customers, but also you should use unique photos because that builds customer and community trust, and it just gives that local feel. Digital keywords, I'm going to split this up into two. So first, I'll talk about paid a little bit later in another slide, but let's focus on organic. Think about the last time you moved, and think about when you needed to get services installed at your place. Did you call the electrical company and ask them, hey, I need a residential electrical hookup? What about the gas company? Did you say I need gas turned on at my residential address? Or did you simply tell them that, hey, I have a new home at 123 ABC Street, and I would like electrical hooked up or gas available? Same can be said for internet. More users are searching home internet and not residential internet, so you should set up your keywords on your website to reflect that. Here's an example of some marketing mixed awareness that we're doing. At the top left, that's a community event. Moving further to the right, you can see our yard sign. Right smack in the middle, that vertical piece, that's a door hanger that we've used. And at the top right, there's another example of a unique landing page with a photo that the community and users would recognize from that area. Moving on, let's talk about cost per acquisition in marketing and why cost per acquisition is important. It's important because it acts as the baseline for measurement. So let's take marketing costs, and I wanted to use a pretty high number here. So let's talk about $1 million in marketing. Let's say that $1 million gets you 700 total orders. That gets you a cost per acquisition of 1,428 because you take the marketing cost, divide that by the total number of orders. Now, how do you know if this is a good CPA? Well, you run it through a return on investment. So you take the total orders times the average customer duration times the average cost per service. So 700 times 36 months. And in our case, we have $69 gig internet. So 69, and that would give us a return of $1,738,800. So we can still make money on a cost per acquisition of 1,428. So how can we use order tracking to lower the cost per acquisition? So these are what's going to be your highest converters. So you should be running town-specific Google ads. This is our real Google ad data. So in the last 30 days, we've spent $300, not $1 million. This is probably more in line with your marketing budget, to gain 37 address searches. You might be wondering, well, 37 address searches isn't customers. And you're right. But what we can do is use that address search to order percentage, which in our case is 44%, and we can estimate that we have 16 orders for those $300 that we spent. That's an average cost per acquisition of $18.75 per customer. That's way better than the $1,428 on the previous slide. And if we were even to 10x that and spend $180.75, I'm sure every single one of us on this call would still take that in order to get a customer. Next, let's talk about direct mail marketing to leads without orders. So because these leads came to our site, gave us their address, we know how to direct mail to them. Maybe we don't have their name yet because they haven't completed the form, so they're just a lead. But we still have what's most important, which is that address information, so we can direct mail market to them and target them that way. Next, we could go map your leads to go door to door. So in some areas, you might have to check with the town or city municipalities to figure out if you can solicit in those neighborhoods. But we have found mapping your leads to go door to door is very vital. And if you do go door to door and hang a door hanger, let them know the benefits of fiber, you can see better rates in those areas. Last, fiber drop marketing. Remember how we told you to have a product that users can sign up for no financial constraints? So remarket to them. You got their name, you got their email, so send them a call, a text, or an email. Let them know, like, hey, we've got the drop put in. All you can do is sign up for service now, and we can get you hooked up. Another reason fiber drop marketing is important is what happens if they're on a contract with their previous or their current internet service provider. They don't want to drop out right now, but because they allowed you to build fiber to their home, when that contract is up, they're ready to make the switch maybe later at a date. So in summary, to wrap this all up, you should save all of your addresses, even the ones outside of the current build area, in some sort of form. That way you can measure them all out, see them over time. I would highly recommend mapping them individually by year. So you can see all of last year's could be orange dots, the 2023 builds could be green dots, 2022 could be black dots. That way you can easily see and kind of shape your map to be an idea of where you could build next. And then have an online order that tracks progress. So if you're taking a whole lot of information right up front, maybe those users don't fill out the form all the way. Be able to have your online form be smart enough that if someone fills out the city and clicks that submit button, that you're already gathering that data. Next, address, capture that individually too. Show them or be able to capture city and address before you give them those products and services. That way you can retarget them later. And last, figure out a way to determine your cost per acquisition and then work on decreasing it so that you can have a greater ROI. I hope everyone enjoyed my short presentation on order tracking data for smarter marketing strategies.